Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Community and Infrastructure Services meeting for Monday, March 25th. Council, are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, can I have a mover, please, for the consent items except for item 3.3? Thank you, Councillor Schneider. All right, staff, would you like to make some opening remarks then before I call for delegations on item 3.3? Sorry, did you have that? Okay, before we move on though, we need a seconder for the consent items. Councillor Singh, and all in favor? Go ahead, Councillor Chapman.
I'm sorry, but I just thought to mention I can't hear anything at all.
Okay, we'll work on that. Can you hear us now?
There you go.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Chapman?
Yeah, I'd just like to take 3.4 out for discussion as well.
I'm sorry?
Item 3.4, I'd like to take out for discussion.
Okay,
Thanks.
all right, thank you. All right, and who is presenting from staff? Okay. Okay, and go ahead, Mr. McCrimmon-Jones.
Through you, Chair. This was a consent item. Now that it is pulled out, we can give you some background on the approach taken here. We receive multiple requests from residents around the city to make adjustments to on-street parking bylaws. We receive multiple requests daily and weekly. Our approach is to review those requests from an engineering standpoint, and if we determine there's an engineering justification, such as a safety issue or a sightline issue, we will bring a staff report forward to council recommending a change to the existing parking bylaws. However, some of those reviews are more of a neighborhood preference versus something that could be supported by engineering. In those cases, we work with residents to explore a resident-led petition with our support. And we provide residents documentation, templates, and messaging to lead that petition process. And that was the approach taken here on Glen Road. We received a request from a resident to remove the permit parking only from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Glen Road. And that resident went through the petition process, and the results of the petition are within the staff report that's before you. The petition process showed 19 residents or addresses in support of removing the permit-only parking, with 6 addresses against or opposed to that change, with 11 addresses who were not interested or not available to respond to the petition. So based on the resident preference, and with about 54% of residents on that street in support of removing the permit-only parking, staff are recommending that we follow the residents' wishes there. The only other thing I would note is there is precedent nearby on Brant Court, or Brant Crescent, apologies, where permit-only parking was removed in 2014 based on the wishes of residents there. And there's been no complaints or concerns received from that street since.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go ahead with delegations, and we'll start with Tia Driver, please.
Awesome. Hi. Thank you for listening to our delegations today. I'm here to ask that the recommendation to remove permit-only parking on Glen Road be redirected back to staff for additional community consultation and research. The recommendation is narrow-sighted, and the petition used to develop the recommendation is biased. I will provide evidence for both these claims. First, the recommendation
Excuse me,
is
Ms. Driver,
narrow-sighted.
can you speak a little closer to the mic, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize. Is this better?
That's awesome. Thank
Awesome,
you.
I'll just lean back in. Okay, so the recommendation is narrow-sighted because the consequences of removing permit-only parking were not considered in the staff report. This section of Glen Road would be the only area between Belmont Ave and Rex Drive with free on-street parking. This means that hospital visitors, visitors to properties on the surrounding streets, and visitors to the two parks in the areas would take advantage of free 3-hour parking on Glen Road, reducing on-street spots available for Glen Road residents and their visitors. In fact, staff report DTS-04-156 clearly identified this as an issue back in 2004 when residents on another part of Glen Road could not access their driveways or find on-street parking due to the influx of people seeking free parking, which is a result of the parking restrictions on the surrounding streets, which also included the previous sections of Glen Road that were already permitted back in 2003. If the current recommendation were to be approved, all we would achieve is free on-street parking for everyone but Glen Road residents. Implementing a policy that will knowingly bring hardship to residents seems contrary to sound policy design. As such, additional research should be conducted to understand the consequences of removing permit-only parking on this section of Glen Road. Second, the petition used to develop the recommendations is biased on 3 accounts. There is a representation bias, an anchoring bias, and a confirmation bias. For the representation bias, properties were excluded or barred from participating in the petition. 35 properties were identified for visitation by the petitioner. However, 10 properties are missing signatures, and I know for certain that 2 of the properties were never visited by the petitioner. That would be mine and my adjacent neighbors. Regardless of any excuses, the petitioner should have conducted due diligence and attempted to reconnect with those properties from which they did not initially receive signatures. Additionally, the city failed to follow up with properties that did not sign the petition, even though the petition's recruitment letter explicitly states that the city would follow up with residents to confirm their responses. Therefore, due diligence was not achieved by the petitioner nor the city, resulting in the exclusion of valid stakeholders like tax-paying property owners. For anchoring bias, the pros and cons related to removing the permit-only parking were not provided to the residents. Without providing residents with comprehensive understanding of the potential drawbacks, respondents would not be able to make an informed decision. This means people would be making decisions only based on their assumptions or the beliefs presented by the petitioner, leading to a biased response that may not truly represent what the person would choose if they knew both the pros and cons. As such, no recommendation should be made based on this petition alone. Finally, for confirmation bias, the current structure of the petition favors the views of the petitioner, and the responses inadvertently confirm the views of a single person. To address this, the petition results should be offset by an additional data source. A good option is a city-led survey. City-led surveys were used in previous engagements regarding this issue in 2003 and 2017. The 2017 petition and survey highlighted considerable differences in how residents responded to the issue. At the time, a petitioner reported that they had over 70% support for removing the permit-only parking, but the city-led survey showed majority support for keeping the permit-only parking. A city-led survey should occur to ensure that the petition's claims are validated by a secondary method grounded in sound research practices. One last thing, the petition is also a good example of gerrymandering. There were 33 properties surveyed by the city in 2017, but this year there's 35. I don't know where the other 2 properties came from. There's a property on South Drive and Barclay Avenue, which their driveways don't access Glen Road, and their properties are assigned to 2 different streets. So it begs the question of why these were included in the decision-making process. In the end, based on the insights provided, there's enough evidence to warrant further investigation of this issue. I ask that this recommendation undergo additional community consultation and research. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Driver, and we do have some questions for you.
Awesome.
Thank you. Councillor Schneider.
Thank you, Chair. From listening to you, just want to clarify, so do you feel that on-street parking spots should only be for the residents who live on that street?
In this instance, I'm neither for nor against. All I want is a process done that is following a democratic process as opposed to the biased petition that's been put in place. So my personal opinion is not really valid in this case, because I would like to have a survey where everyone on the street gets a chance to voice their opinion in a non-biased way.
Okay, I think maybe we disagree on the bias, but because of the way the votes went through, so.
But this was a petition, not a vote.
Yeah.
No, sorry, I don't mean to argue, sorry.
Yeah, no,
Bad habit, my bad.
just wanted to clarify that,
Yeah.
because it sounded like you felt that the parking spots were only for the people on the street, from what you said in your speech.
Well, currently, they're only for people who have the permits, right? But if we
Right.
open it up, then it could be for anybody, because we are only a stone's throw away from the hospital, so anyone could theoretically use the street parking, regardless if they are visiting a resident on Glen Road, or if they're visiting someone at the hospital, or a park, or someone on Barclay.
Okay, so again, to clarify, what do you feel the use for on-street parking spaces should be?
If there were no permit-only parking, then it could be open for anyone who would like to use it to visit whoever it is, like if they're going to visit the park, if they're going to visit the hospital, or if they're going to visit residents. But the current permit-only parking would mean that only visitors to properties on Glen Road could visit the road.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you, Councillor Snyder. Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for coming in. So your biggest concern is people from the hospital parking on the street. Is that?
My biggest concern, if it were to be removed, is visitors to hospitals, visitors to people on South Drive, Rex Drive, Barclay, Binscarth, what is the other one? Belmont Ave, that could theoretically come and park on Glen Road, because they're only a stone's throw from this street, and their streets require permit-only parking.
Right.
And there's also, is it Lakeside Park? And then there's a little park down on Rex Drive that people like to visit, and there's no parking for either of those parks. So Glen Road would be a free parking spot for them.
Right. And currently, with those that have permits, is it a lot, like I haven't seen any visuals, right? Or I haven't seen the petition either. Are there a lot of people that with permits that park on the road right now, or is it pretty empty?
It really depends. Like if there's holiday events or weekends, we see some influx of people visiting. Also to note, we have, the housing is changing where we're having multi-unit residentials occurring now. So there's a couple houses where there's at least 5 or 6 students or multiple unit residents that are taking advantage now because their driveways are really small. So they're using the permit-only parking for the residents there. So in the sense of like the street isn't clogged as it is right now. It varies between times a day and special events and stuff.
And how long does it take to walk from where you are to the hospital?
To the hospital emergency room, it takes 5 minutes? Not even 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Depends how fast you want to get up that hill.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Chapman, and thank you, Ms. Driver.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Next up is James Hollinger, please. And welcome, Mr. Hollinger. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Councillor. You'll have to forgive me. I'm a little bit nervous. I've never done this before.
You're doing great.
Just for the record, I'm sorry, my last name is pronounced Hollinger. I'm not as well-spoken as my neighbor is. I, too, am against the permit parking being removed, as I have seen so many cars just coming and parking on our roads. The neighbor that went with this petition, that started the petition, claims that he's gone to all these houses. I myself went around yesterday, a Sunday, on my day, and I talked to a lot of my neighbors that I'm just kind of meeting for the first time, although I've been in the neighborhood for 20 years. And my numbers vary differently than the petition numbers. I'm finding that there's approximately 7 to 8 houses that are rental units, and in my opinion, I don't believe the renters should be entitled to be part of this petition, as they are not the landowner or the land taxpayer for the property. And now I've spoken to several of the owners And the numbers I received were 11 homeowners out of the 33 were contacted, 10 were not, 7 there were no answer at the door. I had 7 properties. 2 rental houses had told me specifically that they had signed the petition, and 3 rental houses were not approached at all. I think the numbers need to be justified. I think the city, in 2017, they sent out letters to the homeowners with a survey asking who would like to have the permit parking removed. And of the 14 responses that came back, 8 residents said no, they do not want it removed, and 6 claimed that they did want it removed. So it was kind of put to rest there. The permit parking was originally initiated in the early 2000s by Ken Carmichael, who found that there was an influx in people parking on the side streets to visit the hospital, for hospital staff parking. If this was opened up to everybody, to the public, we have several apartment buildings in our neighborhood there would be no stopping anybody from parking on this street. I really have not a whole lot. I do have questions, though. If this was to be implemented and the permit parking was to be removed, our street, I've seen several ambulances going down our street on Glen Road, and I'm wondering, is this a secondary access to the hospital? Will there be a problem with ambulances and emergency vehicles going down our street if there's cars parked on both sides of the road? Does the city plan on switching which side of the road you can park on different months? Is that an option? But as my neighbor has said, I'm not for or against this movement. I would like to make sure it's done properly with the accurate numbers. And that's about all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Hollinger. We do have some questions from Council. Councillor Singh.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Just a little surprised by some of your comments, so I just wanted clarity, because I think the question has been raised about the fairness of how the survey was conducted and the participants. So you're saying the tenants that live there that pay rent, which in effect does pay for property taxes, they have lesser rights as citizens on that street as opposed to homeowners that own the property?
I wouldn't put it that harsh, but in essence, a person paying rent pays rent to the homeowner. The homeowner is listed as the taxpayer for the city, not the person renting the property. Although they are a resident there, next week they may not be a resident there. But the homeowner will remain the homeowner.
I appreciate that. I think that it was a bit of a redundant question, but I just wanted to kind of challenge that assertion. I would say that irrespective if they're owner or tenant, they have a voice, and that voice needs to be included. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hollinger.
Thank you so
That
much.
appears to be all the questions for you. Thank you. Okay, we'll go on to, Mr. Mayor. Please go ahead.
So yeah, thank you very much, and thanks to the delegations that came in. I guess my questions of staff, in looking at this report, have we had any dialogue with the hospital around this? Because I remember I was on council when we created these many years ago, both here and then eventually at Grand River Freeport site on a couple of the streets because of parking issues. And all of this was at the request of residents at the time because of the kinds of parking problems that folks talked about. And obviously this also has an impact on the hospitals because either the availability or non-availability of these parking spots both impacts their staff and visitors who come to the hospital and utilize parking, which also becomes part of the revenue stream, quite frankly, for the hospitals. And so I'm just wondering if we had any discussions with them and input, both from that perspective and emergency services access.
Through the chair to the mayor, no, we did not engage with the hospital on this survey or the recommendation before you. Regarding the emergency services access, the width of Glen Road does meet our standards as well as tax standards, Transportation Association of Canada, to permit parking on both sides of the road here. So from an access standpoint, we wouldn't have any concerns, but no, we did not engage with the hospital.
So is there anything time sensitive to this that it's something you couldn't still go back and do?
Through the chair, no.
Okay. I'll leave it to the ward councillor to, I guess, make whatever recommendation she's going to make, but I wouldn't be averse to taking the time to at least have that dialogue with the hospital.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, thank you. I just wondered if you could tell us when the permit model started on this street. Like, has it been for a long time? And, you know, when did it start and why did it start? Like, what was parking like on the street prior to that?
Through the chair, so the permit-only parking system started at this hospital, as I believe the mayor referred to, was 2004. And so it's been in place for quite some time. It was in place at the time as a result of primarily, I would say, employees and visitors of the hospital parking on street in and around the hospital. And so at the time, a wide berth of parking restrictions were put into place to try to eliminate that. And since that time, we really have, I think the conditions have changed quite substantially. But B, we haven't heard of that issue anymore. That's kind of went away.
Well, because you have to have a permit, right? So we've heard the reasons why one wouldn't want to lift the permit requirement. What are some of the positive reasons why one would lift it, I guess, from your perspective?
Through you, Chair. There is some coordination required with a permit system. Each household gets a specific number of permits that they have to issue to visitors, contractors, etc. And then they have to manage those permits. If they lose them, they can contact us to get replacement permits. So I think it's just that coordination piece is probably not having to deal with that might be one of the benefits of removing the permit system. That's just one of the concerns that we've heard.
Can I keep going? Yeah, so regarding the survey itself, I haven't seen it. I don't think it was shared with us, but are you satisfied with how it was conducted?
Through you, Chair, yes, we worked with an individual, provided that individual with the documentation, the survey template, as well as key messaging. For the residents who responded yes to the survey, we did follow up with them via phone call to make sure that they knew what they were responding to and that they were in fact who they said they were. And then in addition to that, we hand-delivered a letter to every single property notifying them of the change that is being recommended before you today, as well as the results of the survey, and that 19 of the 35 noted as being in support of removing permit-only parking.
So there's no follow-up with those that were opposed or those that did not respond?
Through the chair, so our approach is that if more than 50% of residents are in support, that demonstrates that there is majority support, and that's what we go forward with. So no, we did not follow up with those who opposed who indicated that they were in opposition through the petition.
And there was mention of the city doing a survey. Is that common practice, and is it something you would consider?
Through the chair, so surveys are common practice. It's a way that we indicate whether or not there is support for these types of parking prohibition changes. I would note, though, that that would be essentially going through the same exercise as staff calling those that were in favor. So it would still get us to that majority number. I'll touch on the 2017 survey quite quickly. One of the reasons that we did recommend a petition here is that we didn't have a sufficient response rate for that survey that was done in 2017. So we only had 14 people respond to that survey. Petitions, because you're going door to door, you get a much higher response rate.
Okay. I think I agree with Councillor Mayor Urbanovic on this one, that would you be willing to go back and, well, I would like you to go back and engage with the hospital to see, you know, the impact that this might have on their services. So I don't know, do I need to do this in writing?
Through the chair, the only caution that I would give you with that one is that if we enter into a discussion with the hospital regarding this road in particular, while our concern is this location, I would expect that if the hospital has concerns or recommendations regarding permit-only parking, they'll want us to take a more holistic look at all of the parking permit-only restrictions that are around the hospital and potentially open that up. So there are issues that may result from entering into those discussions. I think that the risk here is very low in terms of making the changes, but we could have substantially different recommendations for you if we enter those discussions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chapman. Councillor Deneau.
Thank you, Chair. And is there a reason why the petitioner asks for a change? Like, do they have to explain why they want to change?
Through you, Chair, I wouldn't want to cite something incorrect, so I don't have that information, no.
Okay. I guess, I'd be curious to know why a person wants a petition, like what's the benefit for them? That what I'm hearing is some people are saying there's not a benefit. Obviously, a person who's applying for this kind of a change, there's a benefit for them, and that's why they're applying for this, sending a petition around. So, are we able to get access to that?
Through the chair, generally speaking, this isn't specific to Glen Road, but some of the concerns we hear about the permit system is that there's that additional level of coordination needed from the residents to get the permit and then issue the permit to their visitors or contractors that come over. Permits get lost, so for example, a visitor might go home with a permit by mistake or a contractor might leave with one, and then they have to go through the process of getting a replacement. I can't say for certain that the individual that initiated and contacted us for this specific review, that was their concern, but that is just something that we hear more generally.
Okay. So the individual who contacted you, is that one of the homeowners, the registered landowners of that on that property on the street?
Through you, Chair, that is our understanding, yes.
Well, you don't know. That's your understanding, but we don't know for sure that they are the homeowner?
I cannot confirm right now if they're the homeowner.
All right. And so of the 33 or 35 houses that are petitioned, is it just take one signature from each house to sign the petition?
Through you, Chair, that's what we look for, is that one individual in each home signs the petition, and then we follow up with those that confirm their support, and then all residents, regardless if they were in support or oppose, all addresses get a letter indicating and summarizing what is in the staff report before you today.
Okay. So to go back to the delegates' concerns and Councillor Singh's question regarding tenants versus landowners, so we don't know of the 33 or 35, apparently there's 35, there's 33 a couple years ago, we don't know if it was the homeowner or the actual tenant signing the petition. Is that correct?
Through the chair, we do ask the person that's conducting the petition to go door to door, so I would expect it to be the resident that's responding.
Okay, but not necessarily the person that actually owns the house.
That's correct.
Okay. Sorry. I think that is all of the questions I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Deneau. Mayor Urbanovic.
Thanks. Just a couple more questions. So can you remind me, around St. Mary's and around Grand River, are the majority of the streets that were put in place some time ago still in place with this program?
So through the chair, there's been very, very little change made to the program over the years.
Okay. And then on the issue of, I mean, to be frank, I personally, to us as a city, it doesn't matter if you're the homeowner or the resident, because at the end of the day, the resident is actually paying taxes through their rent as part of the process, and you know, gets the right to vote and all those kinds of things that come with being a resident. So I think that's important to keep in mind. But on this particular issue, or in fact, you know, going back to what can initiate this kind of review, does it make sense that from a policy point of view, thinking, I mean, and I don't know the circumstances because, you know, we don't have them today, you know, this could be as simple as someone maybe had a visitor or a contractor who didn't have a permit, got a ticket, isn't happy about it, and now, you know, we're doing a significant, you know, policy review that can open up, you know, a whole broader discussion. I mean, should there not maybe be some sort of predefined threshold that can initiate something like that, and not just a single complaint, perhaps?
Through the chair, so that's why we look at the response rate. So we can't presuppose what one's reasoning would be for requesting a change, but when we contact the residents, or in this case have a petition done with the residents, generally speaking, the reason we look for a majority is because that means that there are similar feelings from the residents that live in the area.
And then the other question I have is, under the permit system, does the 3-hour restriction that applies in the rest of the city still apply?
Yes, that would still apply.
So someone can have a permit, someone calls in a complaint, parking would come, they'd chalk it, and come back 3 hours later and check again?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. Well, you know what, I'm going to move. Well, if you're going to move it, then that's fine. Are you moving a deferral?
We actually still have a comment from Councillor Schneider before we move to that. Go ahead, Councillor Schneider.
Thank you, Chair Johnson. Just so I'm clear, can you explain the permit process and how that works, the permit parking?
Through you, Chair. So identified streets around our hospitals, there are bylaws in place that only permit those with permits to park from usually 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. When you're parking from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. with a permit, you still have to abide by city bylaws, such as the 3-hour limit. You cannot park too close to a driveway or in front of a fire hydrant, for example. But during that time, you must have a permit in order to park on the street. Our team issues those permits to people within those areas every year. And each household gets 2 permits, and some additional permits can be issued if they're, depending on circumstances, for example, if there's an additional accessory unit within the building.
Okay, so it would be the people who live on that street would be the ones with the permits, is that accurate?
Through you, Chair, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Schneider. I'm going to go to Councillor Davey before I come back. Go ahead, Councillor Davey.
Yeah, apologies, I stepped out for a second if this question was asked, but just wanted to be clear on the hospital piece of this. It's not my area, but looking at the map online, unlike Grand River Hospital, for example, where there's basically one road going to it, there looks like there's 8 going into St. Mary's Hospital. So my question is that an issue at all? Because from looking at the map, if Glen Road was closed altogether, I still don't think there would be any access issues. And I'm just asking this question to inform the potential deferral.
Through the chair, that's correct. St. Mary's primary response route is Queen. So we do not foresee any issues for access to the hospital.
Okay. Okay, so just in advance of the deferral motion, I really think we should be leaving the, sorry, I'm commenting, but we should be leaving the hospital piece out of this. If you want to defer it for other reasons, permanence, et cetera, I would consider supporting that.
Thank you, Councillor Davey. Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, so I'd like to defer it so that staff can go and engage with the hospitals, and also to maybe follow up further on the survey. Maybe do like the city do its own survey and contact those that have not either responded or who were opposed, just to make sure that we're getting this right.
Councillor Deneau.
Thank you, Chair. And to Councillor Chapman's point, I would actually, to Councillor Davies' point, I would suggest us not bringing the hospital in at this point, because I don't think it necessarily affects them at this point in time. I think it affects the residents of the street who brought the petition forward and the ones who are appealing the staff recommendations. So I'm not sure if we have to put that into a motion or we have to, yeah, I'm not sure.
Councillor Chapman, would you agree to that change?
So you're suggesting we take out the hospital but keep in the further survey by the city? Well, I'd prefer to defer to Mayor Vrbanovic, who is suggesting that maybe this is the route we should be going.
Councillor Deneau? Sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it, with all these streets that are coming into the hospital, I think it just opens more of a can of worms than probably it needs to be at this point in time regarding the hospital and some of either their policies or their staffing. Again, because it wasn't a hospital-led initiative as far as the petition goes, and it wasn't a hospital-led delegation against the staff recommendations. So my personal preference would be to leave the hospital out at this point in time, and then if whatever comes out of the meeting between residents and staff, then if we feel it's necessary to bring the hospital in, I think it would be appropriate at that time.
Thank you, Councillor Deneau. Mayor Vrbanovic.
Thanks, Chair Johnson. And I guess you're taking some liberties, and I appreciate that, because you're giving me some liberties too, because on a deferral motion, it should really just be the time and place. But I'll just add that, as I recall, and I'm going back in the memory bank a little bit here, I'll acknowledge, but at the time, the hospitals, as far as I can remember, were quite engaged and supportive of this, because it was creating a lot of tension in the neighborhoods between the hospitals and the residents, and so on. And so that's why I think having that level of engagement, I understand, it may not be the key thing. And I'll be frank, even if the hospital said, let's get rid of it, which I can't quite frankly imagine because of the revenue impact that would have for them, on all the streets, the reality is that, they're a key partner, and I think we need to engage with them on this issue.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Chapman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Before Council votes on the issue, I just want to reiterate a couple of points that were made today. First of all, this issue is not a city priority. This was not initiated by staff, and staff had raised no concern with the permit-only parking that existed in the neighbourhood. You heard today that we did a survey in 2017 that had a lower response rate than the petition. Our experience would say that city surveys have a lower response rate, and so we don't expect that you'll get a higher turnout through a city survey than you've received through the petition today. All residents that responded yes were contacted to validate that that was their response, and all residents were notified of the meeting today. So those that had a concern with the recommendation were made aware of it and could have appeared today to raise those concerns. So I just want to manage council's expectations that further engagement I don't think will yield more input. I think council has all the information you need in front of you to make a decision. And to be frank, if you're not comfortable to change the regime that's in place today, then simply direct staff to leave it alone. But I don't believe that a survey will provide further clarity at this point in time.
Thank you, Mr. Chapman. Councillor Michaud.
Thank you. And yeah, I'm kind of leaning to Mr. Chapman's comments. Before you said that, I thought I read this, and it's basically a citizen-led initiative. It's nothing. It's not a council initiative. And you know, you're reading over the report, and it's the citizens that are leading this. So I think it's up to council to decide whether we agree with the study of the survey, or we don't. I'm not sure a deferral is necessary.
Thank you, Councillor Michaud. Councillor Schneider.
Thank you again, Chair Johnson. And just want to clarify with staff, you mentioned that should there be discussions with the hospital, that it would then move beyond just this street and could have wide-ranging impact on other streets?
So through the chair, we don't know what the hospital's response would be. We do know that that discussion that occurred with the hospital was basically 2 decades ago. We're going to be looking at dealing with different staff, different leadership, and probably a different direction. And so we don't know what the result of that would be.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Schneider. Councillor Strach.
Yes, thank you. I'm looking at not supporting a deferral at this time, but I do have a question about the survey post-pandemic. Have we seen greater results in city surveys?
Yeah, so through the chair, no, generally not. One of the biggest challenges with city-led surveys is that we mail them out, and so we'll typically hope to get a 50%, 50 to 70% response rate. The number that came back through the petition was great, and we did conduct that follow-up conversation with each of those residents that had signed the petition in favor, just to ensure that there was no that they were on side with the change.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Chapman.
Thank you. So I'm going to leave the 2 amendments, and I'd like them to be voted on separately. But I'd also like to ask staff, if this were to fail, and let's say that, that we go ahead with the recommendation that we remove the permit requirement, is this something we could come back to in a year and just see how it worked for the surrounding neighborhood? And how would that be done?
Through you, Chair, yes, we can review this on an ongoing basis and get feedback from residents about how the change is going, and if there are concerns. We can also connect with our bylaw enforcement team to understand what they're seeing out on the street. So yes, this is something that we can review.
Okay, so the 2 motions would be one for a deferral, one to reach out to the hospital and get their feedback, and number 2, given the concern with the biases that were mentioned, that we would do more of a city-led survey to determine the direction to go on this.
Thank you, Councillor Chapman. Mr. Reedman, sorry.
Through the chair, so I do want to reiterate that every single person that was within that circled area did get a final letter that stated the results of the survey and the next steps. So that's likely why there are delegations here today, and so, you know, whether they participated in the survey at the time, like, we can't force people to do that, but everybody was notified of the result before making a recommendation to council today.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, just from not sure that you can have a deferral for 2 separate issues. Like, it's deferred until a certain date, and you can ask whatever, you know, information you want to include into it. I don't know that we can start splitting that up. It would be, I mean, it'd be a little odd, I think, from the norm. You're the chair, Madam Chair. So you get to.
I love when this comes up when I'm in chair. Thank you.
So, yeah, so maybe,
Sorry, Councillor Chapman?
Yeah, that's fine, a deferral, directing staff in those two, along those two lines.
Until?
Okay.
Until the next council meeting.
Which is April 8th.
Well, that may not give you enough
Is our
time.
next
The
community infrastructures meeting or?
The May meeting? The May council meeting, yeah.
Councillor Michaud?
Thank you. So this deferral is for asking staff to go back and extend, like do another survey? Is that what this is? I just want, because we've been going, there's a lot of stuff, bouncing balls in this thing.
Councillor Chapman?
Yes, I mean, I propose that based on the concern with the biases and the way that the survey was conducted. So yes, staff gets the results, but they don't conduct the survey. So I think this would give the residents on the street, maybe more confidence in the process.
Asking staff to do a survey a different way then? Is that what we're asking of them?
Yes, I asked earlier if it's common for them to do surveys. They said yes, so I'm asking that staff do a survey in the way that it does a survey to determine the use of the permit or not the use of the permit.
Maybe staff would like to comment on that.
Through you, Chair, because we get such a high volume of requests to change parking on street, we don't have the resources to conduct our own survey every single time. So we work with residents to conduct a resident-led petition, and then we put practices in place like sending out letter and additional correspondence to verify the results of that petition. However, we could potentially, and I think this is where Councillor Chapman is going, send out a survey on our own to residents in addition to the petition that has already been done, which was led by residents. This would be a survey led by city staff.
Mr. Reedman?
And through the chair, I don't believe staff could conduct that by May 27th because we would have to mail out a survey, give at least 2 weeks for people to respond. We typically circulate the response back to the residents, and then we would have to write a staff report. So all of those have lead time. So I believe the earliest would be possibly June, maybe July, to bring back something. And I haven't looked at what those dates would be yet.
Thank you. Councillor Stretch.
I just wanted to ask a question of staff about initiating a review. Depending on how council votes today, can the neighborhood then re-engage and do another petition?
Through the chair, yes, a resident can request to do a resident-led petition, but I think given that it's already been conducted and if staff were to follow up with another survey, that likely wouldn't be required. But any resident on any street can request a resident-led petition at any point.
Thank you. Councillor Chapman, do you have a clear motion?
Yes, that we defer this decision until, I'll say June. Would June allow us to do this properly? Till June.
Through the chair, the council meeting in June is June 24th.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Council, can we, we'll vote on the amendment, and all those in favor?
Is there a seconder?
Oh, sorry, is there, we don't need a seconder. Okay. All those in favor? All those opposed? And that is defeated. Okay, thank you. So we'll vote then on the main motion. Do I have someone to make the motion? Do I have a mover for the motion? Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Owedani. So sorry.
Through the chair, He was just moving the recommendation as requested.
My apologies. So, it was defeated?
Yes, so now the main motion.
Yes, and now the main,
Moved by Councillor Odie.
1 second, Mr. Mayor Verbanovic?
Yeah, so now that we're speaking to the main motion, I won't be supporting the recommendation from staff. I do think, again, and I recognize that others around the horseshoe don't have the history, but these were difficult discussions at the time many years ago, and I'm not sure that everyone fully understands the impact. And looking at it from a single road perspective and leaving it in place in others, it's only going to, in my view, move the problem onto this road. And I think without that broader conversation and without a conversation with our hospital partners, which I think is absolutely key, but I respect the decision of this group, I can't support it in its present form.
Thank you. Do we have a mover for that? Oh, Councillor Owodani is moving it, and we don't need a seconder, so all those in favor? All those opposed? And that is defeated. Okay, thank you. Okay, next we need to go back to the consent items. When we voted, we had voted to take out item 3.3, and then Councillor Chapman had asked to have item 3.4 removed as well. So we'll need to take that out of consent. Councillor Chapman, did you want to comment on that item? Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So I just wanted to, first of all, point out that, pardon me?
Sorry, we need to vote on taking that item out of consent. All those in favor to take item 3.4 out of consent? Thank you, and that is passed. And go ahead, Councillor Chum.
Yeah, thank you. First, I just wanted to point out that in the list of neighbourhood associations, I think Old Berlin is showing as Ward 9, and it should be Ward 10. And I also wanted to get a bit of clarification on the signing of the affiliation agreement. Like, have these neighbourhood associations already signed on to it or not? Because I've been contacted by a neighbourhood association who said that they have not signed on to this current version of the affiliation policy, and I just wondered if you could clarify that.
Go ahead, Mr. Hildebrand.
Thank you. Through the chair, yes, all neighborhood associations who are in this listing have all signed. And if there were people questioning the signing, staff would call them and have a conversation, and then they typically signed afterwards.
Okay. There were also a few questions that were brought to my attention, and I realize this isn't actually looking at the affiliation policy today. What would have to happen for some of these pending concerns to be discussed further with staff?
Through the chair, you're correct. Today I was just asking for approval of the listing of the neighborhood associations. Back in June in 2023, Council unanimously approved the changes to the neighborhood association affiliation policy. There were a couple of things that were said in the report that aren't exactly accurate. That being neighborhood associations who provide programming outside of community centers, both are also eligible for leisure access for their programming, as well as the inclusion support workers. So that was misstated in the report, but it is a benefit of affiliation to all neighborhood associations who program. With regards to the other approvals that were that were already approved in June 2023, I'm not sure. I can sit down and talk with you after this, and we can talk about whether or not it requires any changes, but I'm quite sure the process in changing something that was already approved by council.
Okay, and I'm happy to do this offline, but we had a conversation earlier today, right, with some of the, and it's just minor tweaking, but that could make a lot of difference to some of the neighbourhood associations that don't fall into the categories that are specified here. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chapman. Okay, can I get a mover, please, for item 3.4? Thank you, Councillor Deneau. All those in favor? And opposed? And that's carried. Thank you. And a mover for the main consent items, please. Oh, we've already had that, correct? Yes, okay. And for the main consent items, all those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Thank you. Okay, we'll now move on to item 3.1, 2024 community grants. I'm sorry. Okay, we'll now move on to the Blair Creek Drive extension. And do we have staff report? Thank you. Okay, and please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Council and Mayor. My name is Niall Melanson, and I'm the project manager in the engineering division, leading the Blair Creek Drive extension environmental assessment. With me today from MTE Consultants, Inc. is Lindsay Dokas and Vince Pulizzi. The planning process for Schedule B EA has been completed, and we are seeking your approval to place the project file report on public record for the mandatory 30-day review period and issue the notice of completion to Indigenous communities, review agencies, and the public. The study area is situated between future Strasbourg Road to the west and Riddell Drive to the east, and is comprising of approximately 700 meters of new road. The study is located entirely on the agricultural property of 271 Riddell Drive. The 2016 Dune South Community Traffic Impact Study and the 2022 Development Charge Background Study identified that the future road network should include extending Blair Creek Drive to Strasbourg Road. In existing conditions, at its east end, Blair Creek Drive connects to Thomas Lee Drive and runs through the Dune South neighborhood. It crosses over the Blair Creek, and it ends in the west at Stouffer Woods Trail. Blair Creek Drive will continue through future stages of the Stouffer Woods subdivision and terminate at Riddell Drive. The purpose of the project was to determine the alignment for the extension of Blair Creek Drive and its intersection with Strasbourg Road, along with associated storm sewers and water main, to service the planned community growth and associated travel demands. I'll pass it over to Lindsay.
Hello. So thanks, Niall, for the introduction. As you mentioned, I'm a project manager with MTE. We were enlisted by the City of Kitchener to complete the Schedule B Class EA for the Blair Creek Drive extension. So I'll just expand a little bit on the process we followed, what studies were completed, and the alternatives we looked at, and eventually the alternative we selected. So the first point of public consultation was the notice of study commencement, which was sent out to all of the local residents as well as interested stakeholders and relevant agencies. It was also posted on Engage Kitchener, and that is where we continue to post project information as it was completed and available. From there, we completed an inventory of the environment, so that included a natural heritage study, a cultural heritage study, a traffic and intersection control study, as well as geotechnical, hydrogeological, and excess soil investigations along the corridor. We developed the problem and opportunity statement, which provided the direction for the EA. As Niall mentioned, it was essentially to determine the alignment of Blair Creek Drive between Riddell Drive and the future Strasbourg Road. We came up with some options to evaluate. The do nothing alternative is always evaluated as part of the Class EA process. In this case, we looked at it briefly, but the justification for the road itself has already been established through the traffic or transportation master plan, and previous studies that came before. So we were really looking at the alignment of the road. So the alignment of the road was going to go there. We just needed to decide whereabouts it was going to intersect. A curved alignment was also briefly discussed, but based on the results of the natural heritage investigation, there were no natural heritage features such as wetlands, significant wildlife habitat, or wildlife species that required being avoided. So we went with point A to point B, pretty straightforward alignment. From there, we drilled down a little bit further to look at different cross sections of the road itself. So should I go forward? Or no, you already have it there. So we had 3 main alternatives in addition to the do nothing, which I already mentioned. The first was a 24.8 meter right-of-way, which tied in and matched exactly what was east of Rydell Drive with 3.5 meter driving lanes. Our alternative 2 and 3 were taken directly from the City of Kitchener's Complete Streets guidelines, so 26.0 meters right-of-way with slightly narrowed driving lanes. Alternative 2 had a separated cycle track, and alternative 3 had an on-road cycle track. Should we go forward? Yeah. So then to evaluate those alternatives, we had a number of design criteria that we looked at. Maybe the next one, actually. That's the cross-section, but it's obviously quite small. So like I mentioned, 3.3 meter driving lanes, separated cycle tracks, and wider 1.8 meter wide sidewalks. Yep. This evaluation matrix is a very simplified version of what we did to evaluate the options. The criteria there we looked at were natural environment features, social cultural environment, heritage or archaeological environment, property impacts, how well the options met technical or city standards, construction costs, impact to climate change. This is also what we presented at the Public Information Center, which we held in person at the Dune South Community Center, along with a few of the key advantages and disadvantages. We expanded upon this in the project file report. But alternative 2 came out on top, and the main reasoning for that was that it addressed the problems, it took advantage of the opportunities, which were no natural features that were impacted, so widest right-of-way, leaving plenty of room for wider sidewalks and active transportation choices. Oh, and then just to finish off, we completed a 30% or preliminary design based on that cross-section, which will now be taken forward, assuming all is approved, to detailed design, and then eventually construction. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Davey.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. I'm certainly supportive, but I thought it might be interesting to explain a bit. It's a bit counterintuitive where it shows in the chart that not building a road is worse for climate change than building the road. So I was hoping perhaps you could maybe expand upon that a little bit.
So our main reasoning for that was like the upfront cost would be not as much, obviously, if you do nothing, but looking forward to the future, we were hoping to create more efficient transportation connections to the developments that are going to be happening on either side of that new road. And also with the cross-section we chose being a complete streets cross-section, we're looking to encourage not only driving, but cycling, transit use, and pedestrians as well.
So not building this road then would result in a lot of people driving around, using extra gas, and not having the option to use alternative transportation methods?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davey. Councillor Deneau.
Thank you, Chair. I thank you for your presentation. You did mention it, but I didn't catch it. Cycle tracks versus bike lanes. What's the difference?
So the way we were describing it was the bike lanes are at street level. The cycle tracks are separated sort of by elevation, a little bit up from the road, and as well by boulevard from the road itself. So it's up and away from the driving lanes next to the sidewalk, but separated from the sidewalk with a little buffer zone. So it's its own
Did you say it's
facility,
safer?
I guess.
It's safer in the end?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Deneau. Councillor Owodunni.
That was the same exact question that I wanted to ask. Although I would like to ask if we can just put up that slide again that has the 3 options, and I would appreciate it. Just wanted to have a look at that again. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And that appears to be all of the questions for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have questions of staff? I'm not seeing any. Do I have a mover for this? Councillor Deneau? Unless Councillor Owodunni, I'm sorry, were you moving that?
Yes, I was moving it.
Yes, thank you. Okay, Councillor Owodunni, thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Thank you. Okay, next we're moving on to item 5.2, Hidden Valley Flood Risk Reduction. And Ms. Monica Mazur is going to present, please. Welcome and thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. My name is Monica Mazur, and I'm the project manager at the city in the engineering division for the Hidden Valley Flood Risk Reduction Municipal Class Environmental Assessment. Joining me today are Scott Robertson and Karen Hofbauer, representing Matrix Solutions. As the planning process for the Schedule B EA has been completed, we are now seeking your approval to place the project file report on public record for the mandatory 30-day review period and issue the notice of completion to Indigenous communities, review agencies, and the public. This environmental assessment is being undertaken to identify a flood risk reduction solution to reduce existing flood risks and support future development in the Hidden Valley community. There are several flood-vulnerable areas and erosion-vulnerable reaches in the downstream portion of Hidden Valley Creek's watershed close to Hidden Valley Road. There is a culvert crossing at Hidden Valley Road that was partially washed out by a flood in 2013, as shown in this photo, and continues to be at risk of future flooding. Hidden Valley Creek runs through a wetland and woodland complex that are classified as a provincially significant wetland and environmentally sensitive policy area. The creek outlets to the Grand River. The wetland has very complex surface water and groundwater interactions, as well as beaver dams, which are unpredictable in nature and contribute to flash floods when they break. 4 alternative solutions were evaluated in the CA to address the flooding and erosion at Hidden Valley Road. Alternative 1 proposes a do-nothing scenario in which no changes are made. Hidden Valley Road, under this scenario, would continue to overtop during large flow events that exceed the current culvert capacity. It is mandatory to include this alternative through the EA process, and it serves as a baseline for comparison between alternatives. Alternative 2 proposes that flow be attenuated upstream of the Hidden Valley wetland using oversized stormwater controls in existing areas as well as proposed development areas, such as oversized swim ponds. Alternative 3 proposes a flow control structure, such as a dam, within the Hidden Valley wetland to provide engineered storage and act as a backstop for beaver dam failures that have occurred several times in the past decade and continue to contribute to flooding issues. Alternative 4 proposes replacing the existing culverts at Hidden Valley Road with a large concrete box culvert to increase flood resiliency and reduce the frequency of road flooding. The surrounding channel in this alternative would also be naturalized, which would reduce erosion potential and improve long-term slope stability. These 4 alternatives were evaluated qualitatively based on 3 criteria: the natural environment, cultural and socioeconomic environment, and technical environment. The evaluation criteria were presented to the public, agencies, and Indigenous communities, and were refined throughout the project based on the feedback that the study team received during these various consultation activities that occurred in the past 11 months. In the final evaluation of alternatives, each alternative's relative potential for benefits and negative impacts was ranked qualitatively on a scale from low impact to high impact in each of the 3 criteria. Alternative 3 ranked the lowest because of the most expensive, technically complex, and detrimental to the natural environment. Alternative 2 ranked the second lowest because the high costs of reducing flows upstream may not result in meaningful flood risk reduction and may also negatively impact wetland water balance. Alternative 1 is moderately preferred overall, as it is least expensive in the short term, but flood and erosion risks would persist. Alternative 4 ranked the highest in each category and is also the alternative that is preferred by the 6 nations of the Grand River and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. The preferred solution reliably reduces flood risk, has minimal approval requirements, and has the smallest construction footprint. It also has the lowest cost of all of the alternatives, with the exception of the do-nothing alternative. Model results show that a 3,900 millimeter span by 1,200 millimeter rise box culvert will meet the design criteria and reduce road overtopping for flows up to the 50-year flow, as shown in the hydraulic simulation results, which compare the existing conditions 50-year floodline to the proposed conditions 50-year floodline. In conclusion, Alternative 4 is the preferred solution, and we ask that you support this solution and support that the project file report be placed on public record. Thank you. Are there any questions?
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think what we'll do is we'll hold questions until all delegations have presented. Okay, so thank you, Ms. Mazur. Next we have Karen Hoffbauer. No? Oh, okay. And I assume you're Scott as well? Okay. All right. Well then, did we have any questions? It doesn't look like we did have any questions, so thank you. Any questions of staff? It does not look like we do. Do we have a mover for this? Councillor Deneau? Okay. All those in favor? Wonderful. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Okay, next up is item 5.3, Schneider and Shoemaker Creek naturalization. And I have Mr. Lamb presenting, but maybe I have...
No, it's Mr. Brown. Mr. Lamb is, I thought he was there. He comes right there.
Oh, and here he is. Okay, thank you. And here you are, and you're up, Mr. Lamb.
Apologies, Council. The door was locked and we couldn't get in on the other side.
No problem.
So we are here today to present the Schneider and Shoemaker Creek Naturalization Environmental Assessment Report. So we are seeking Council's approval of the report with a recommendation to post for the 30-day public notice, which is a requirement under the Environmental Assessment Act, and subsequently after the 30-day posting period, if there are no comments that are received, for us to proceed with design. With me today I have Steve Brown, who is with Stantec. He is the surface water lead there, and he has been the project manager on our environmental assessment. So I'll turn it over to Steve for a quick overview of the EA process.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Lamb. And please go ahead, Mr. Brown.
Brown. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. A little bit closer. How's that? That better? So the purpose of the report you have before you today is to seek endorsement of the recommendations of the Environmental Study Report, the ESR, to implement the naturalization of sections of Schneider and Shoemaker Creek and the preferred alignment of the Iron Horse Trail through the area. My presentation will give you a very quick summary of the regulated Class EA process that the project has been following as it relates to the presentation, or as it relates to the recommendation before you. So the work to date has been entirely towards fulfilling the requirements of the Class EA process. Started in late 2022. Through the past year or so, we have proceeded through the various phases of the ESA, from identifying problems, opportunities, to field assessments, to evaluating different concepts and alternatives, public engagement, and so on. And we've now come to a point where we've got a preferred recommended approach. Along the way, we've held 3 public information centers, as you can see on the screen there, April, June, and December of last year. And we're now at the final stages where the Environmental Study Report, or ESR, is prepared to summarize and document the outcomes that we've arrived at jointly with the public through our engagement process. So the engagement is a key component or requirement of any Class EA process, and it's been very important as we go through this study as well. Project team has engaged in a number of methods to reach out to as many stakeholders as possible. Our overall objective was to have an open and effective consultation and communication process with all stakeholders. This slide has a long list of different methods that we've used through this engagement, our engagement activities. I'm not going to go through all of them, but going to focus on a couple of them just to bring your attention to them. I'll start out with the First Nations engagement. The city staff have been meeting quarterly with the First Nations groups, Mississaugas, the Credit, and Six Nations of the Grand, and having an open dialogue on the project throughout the process so that they're engaged with where things stand and they're in support of the preferred alternative before you. Also been continuing to have regular updates with the local councillor to keep her updated on where things have been standing. And we've had 3 public information centers throughout the life of the project to introduce it, to look at project concepts, and then to look at refined design alternatives. We've been very transparent and thorough in all of our engagement activities so far, and believe that we have a general support of all stakeholders that we've talked to. So the recommended solution, the work done through the EA process to date, comprises a number of items. First off, and the primary one, is the full naturalization of the Schneider and Shoemaker Creek corridors between Stirling and Sydney. It will largely maintain the existing Iron Horse Trail alignment with a couple of exceptions. We're going to extend the Iron Horse Trail. It currently terminates at Ottawa Street. We're going to extend it down to Sydney to avoid the on-road portion of it on Nyberg. And we're going to add another spur that goes along Shoemaker Creek up to Cortland. We're going to incorporate additional amenity features along the trail, like viewing and seating areas, and we're going to replace 2 pedestrian crossings between Kent and Stirling with a single one. So the recommended alignment has a number of benefits. First off, and primarily improves resilience by reducing flood risk through the study area. It improves natural habitat, both aquatic and terrestrial, by incorporation of the new channel and corridor. It increases community green space by providing that green corridor through the study area. It'll enhance amenity and recreational values of the Iron Horse Trail and provide some opportunity to enjoy and interact with naturalized areas through the seating and access to the creek. And as a final for next steps, so the recommendation that will go is in front of you and will go before Council on April the 8th will be to approve the ESR and to provide direction to post for the 30-day review period, which is all part of that regulated Class EA process. After finalizing the ESR, the next phases of the project will incorporate final design, likely through the rest of this year, followed by permitting and then construction, expected to start mid-2025 and wrap up by the end of 2026. And with that, I will open the floor for questions.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Mr. Brown.
Very quick summary.
And Councillor Chapman, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for keeping me in the loop. I just wondered, as far as, moving the location of the Iron Horse Trail and, some of I know at the beginning there was talk of having to look at purchasing properties. What stage is all of that, and how has the response been?
Do you want to hit the property stuff? So the trail alignment has been sort of front and center in all of our discussions and one of the key components. So we're looking at extending the trail down to Sydney, adding a spur up to Cortland. The only real realignment within the study area is to shift it a few meters on the section between Sterling and Kent, just to provide a little bit more space for that naturalization. So it's relatively minor adjustments to the current alignment.
Do you want to hit the trail or hit the... And through the chair, so in regards to the properties and property acquisitions, so there is a preferred alternative that has been identified as part of the environmental assessment report. And currently we have notified all impacted property owners, and we are in active negotiations with them. And because we are in active negotiations, I'm not at liberty to provide a lot of the details, but we are in various stages of active negotiation with every impacted property owner that's been identified.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stretch.
Yes, thank you. I have two questions. During the change in the trail, will the trail remain open or closed?
For the most part, the trail will remain open. For the section where we have to realign it, we'll have to close it temporarily during the construction stage.
Okay, will there be like a bypass people can get around, or?
Yeah, there will certainly be signage. I'm not sure that there's a specific alignment at this point for a bypass, but yeah, there will have to be direction and signage that would direct people to the appropriate locations.
Okay, thank you. And my other question was about meeting with the First Nations groups. Who meets with these groups?
That's been primarily city staff. Do you want to speak to that? I haven't been present at those, so.
Yeah, and through the chair, we have had regular meetings with First Nations, particularly the rights holders, Six Nations of the Credit, and Six Nations of the Grand River and Mississaugas of the Credit. And we have regular quarterly updates with that group, and we have been actively meeting with them on a regular basis.
Great. Do you meet with them in person?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Okay, that appears to be all the questions. Thank you. Do I have a mover for this? Councillor Chapman? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, and next, we're moving on to item 5.4, the Kitchener Indoor Recreation Complex. So this is an exciting day for you, Mr. May, and go ahead whenever you're ready.
If we can just go back. Yeah, thanks. Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and good afternoon, members of council. I'm here today to present you with an exciting proposal to build a new multi-indoor recreation facility at the existing R.B. Schlegel Park. However, before I do that, on behalf of the corporate leadership team, and specifically my colleague Denise McGoldrick, I'd like to express my deep appreciation and thanks to the members of the Integrated Project Delivery Team, or IPD as I'll refer to it, who have been doing amazing work on this proposal and have put me in the place where I can speak to you today about it. Over a relatively short period of time, city staff and our private sector partners on the IPD team have rallied together and done enormous work to put together a better proposal for your consideration. Of course, it's always dangerous to call out one individual when saying thanks for the collective efforts of an entire team, but in this case, I think it's more than justified. It's simply no overstatement to tell you that the proposal for you today would not be here if it were not for the contributions and leadership of Osama Siddiqui. Osama's unique combination of subject matter expertise, his commitment to truly designing a building that will meet the community's needs, and his caring approach to the work that he does quickly made him the heart and soul of the entire IPD team. We are grateful and thankful for his contributions. And with that, I'll dive into the details of my presentation. Back in 2019, the city undertook an extensive process to update its leisure facilities master plan and to set the city's top priorities for indoor recreation facilities. As part of that process, City Council identified a new indoor community pool and an indoor turf facility as the city's top two rec priorities. Since that time, a lot of work has taken place to move the project forward. Thanks to several past decisions of City Council, and as well the work of the city's first ever IPD team, I'm here today to provide you with an overview of a proposal that will ultimately create, we believe, the city's premier indoor recreation facility and one of the most environmentally sustainable rec facilities in all of Canada. I'm proud to tell you that the proposal before you today would result in a much better building than the proposal you approved back in 2022. Over the past 6 months, city staff have drawn on the expertise of our private sector IPD partners and continued to engage with key stakeholders and user groups to ensure the facility we are proposing and have designed will meet current, future, and diverse recreation needs for decades to come. The facility we're recommending to you today includes several new or improved amenities, and I just want to touch on a few. The facility includes a larger FIFA-sized indoor soccer field that can be divided into 4 individual fields to allow more residents to use the turf at the same time. The facility includes a larger community leisure pool to provide more space for more residents to participate in lessons, lane swims, and other pool activities. And the facility improves an elevated walking track around the perimeter of the indoor turf facility, which will allow residents of all ages, from our youngest to our oldest, to participate and stay active indoors year-round. And finally, the facility will include an array of solar panels that will not only reduce our GHG emissions, but it will also save the city about $100,000 a year in utility costs. This facility has been designed specifically to benefit our community for now and for the future. The Aquatic Center and the Indoor Turf Facility, which will be one of only 5 turfs of its size in all of Ontario, are anticipated to attract over 380,000 users in the first year of operation alone. In addition to that immediate benefit to the community, we've also included plans for a future gymnasium addition that will be shovel-ready as we seek out grant opportunities from other orders of government. Given the diverse makeup of our community, it's no accident that this facility includes specific amenities designed to diversify a range of recreational opportunities that we provide, not only in the fast-growing southwest corner of the community, but across the city and indeed across the region. And on top of all of that, on top of all of the recreational benefits of this proposal, we have designed the building to meet the highest certification standard of Canada Green Building Council's standard of the Canadian Green Building Council, which makes this truly one of the most environmentally sustainable facilities in the entire country. And that is something that the IPD team is incredibly proud of. So this slide provides you with a high-level layout of the main floor of the building. I just want to walk you through a few key elements. If you look at the top left of the image, you will see the Aquatic Center, which includes 2 pools, a community leisure pool, as well as an 8-lane, 25-meter pool. The large green square on the bottom right of the facility is the indoor turf. As you can see, it can be played as one large field, or it will, for the most part, be divided up into 4 individual fields. Around that field, elevated on the 2nd level, is the walking track. We've also included in the design multi-purpose rooms. These rooms can be joined together into one, and if they're in that large configuration, could sit about 200 people at round tables. But they could also be divided into 4 smaller rooms and rented for things like birthday parties, for tournament offices, and for other community events. So the next few slides I'm going to go through are just some renderings of different parts of the facility. I think it's important to point out that one of the differences in the IPD process is we will move to construction before we have a final design of the building. And so some of the elements in the design of these renderings may change as we continue our work, but I think these are a good representation of what you can expect. So the first image is the main entrance of the facility. This is where most of the people will enter. I'll just draw your attention to the curved roof. That's an intentional architectural feature that will be included throughout the facility, and I'll point it out in a number of other areas. But you can see that it is a large glass entrance to allow for a lot of sunlight and help make the lobby of the facility a space of its own that is an attractive place for people to spend time. This illustration is from the other side of the building, and so it's looking from, the best I can describe is the splash pad and other outdoor amenities that are at Schlegel Park. If you're looking back, on the right behind those 5 trees is the pool, and on the left is the turf facility. The lower level windows on the front of the building are the multi-purpose spaces, and you can see on the entrance, again, that curved entrance into the building as one of the architectural features. This is the main lobby, looking as though you've just walked in through the doors. You can see that it's large, open space. We anticipate that this will be used for things like tournament check-ins, vendor booths. Community events itself will likely find themselves setting up in this facility. To the left of this image is the pool, and straight ahead to the right is the indoor turf. This is an image of the pools. In the foreground of the image is the community pool where most of the lessons will take place, and in the background is the lane swim, where lessons will also take place, but it'll also be used for lane swims. And again, you can see the curved roof of the pool, which is an intentional element. The indoor turf, really this picture does not do the indoor turf justice given the size of it. Perhaps the only stat I can give you to really help appreciate it is from the turf to the bottom of those trusses on the ceiling is 40 meters. So it is a very large facility that can be divided up into 4 and used for a wide variety of sports, not just soccer, but things like cricket and other amenities or other sports. You'll see the walking track, so that black piece around the middle of the walls is the walking track. We can look closely at this, and this is a great example of what I said earlier, but we're not at final design on some points. So this is the walking track, and it shows you to the left the green roof over the community bookable spaces, and on the right the turf facility. But we're still trying to figure out what is the ultimate design of the track. How many lanes is it? Where are those lanes positioned? And how do we do our best to physically separate those that are using the track for walking and running from those that will be viewing players on the sports field? So there's more work to be done there, but this gives you a good preliminary sense. Now that I've walked you through some of the additions and improvements to the proposed facility, I just want to touch on the budget and the funding strategy before I wrap up. The cost of this new improved building is $144 million. However, I think it is important to stress that construction of this facility will have no impact on municipal taxes, as it will be funded through a combination of previously announced federal and provincial grants, as well as development charges revenues that have been specifically earmarked for future indoor rec facilities. As you can see from this bar graph, when we compare our per square foot construction costs with other similar facilities built recently, our costs compare very favorably and are lower than most. I think it's fair to say that this favorable construction cost comparison is in large part thanks to the city's decision to take an IPD approach to a project of this scale and complexity. As I mentioned earlier, the proposal staff have put forward to fund this facility means the construction can be done without any impact to the tax base. And while that strategy would include issuing debt that will be fully repaid by future DC revenues, even after issuing that debt for this facility, the city's total debt servicing as a percentage of total revenue is expected to be less than 5%, which is within the low-risk range. I do think, in fairness to council and to the community, I need to take a minute to just make you aware of one constraint that funding this project will create on future indoor rec facilities. After funding this facility, as well as 3 growth-related community center capital projects, which the city is already committed to in our 10-year capital forecast, our ability to fund new indoor rec facilities through DC revenues will be very limited for the next 15 years. And so just as you're making a decision about a facility that will serve this community for decades, I think in fairness you need to understand the other side, which is we will not have DC revenues to fund other indoor rec priorities for about 15 years. So earlier I highlighted the benefit of the IPD process in terms of the design of the building and the project budget, but another great benefit to IPD is the schedule and how quickly we can move from council's potential approval in a couple of weeks to putting shovels in the ground. As this slide outlines, if City Council approves this proposal on April 8th, we will have shovels in the ground the following month. And if all goes according to plan, the facility will open to the community in the summer of 2026. So as I conclude my remarks, I think it's important to just bring us back to the important role that this type of recreation facility plays in our community and the lives of the residents we serve collectively. This proposal isn't about constructing a new building. It's about creating a place where residents will come together for many decades to come, to stay active, to stay involved in the activities and the sports that they love, and to stay connected to one another. With that, Madam Chair, we have a number of staff who are available to respond to council questions.
Thank you so much, Mr. May, for your presentation. I do have a number of councillors in line here, though. I would like to, with your indulgence, first go to a presentation that we have from Ms. Tova Davidson. She's going to present first, and then we'll go to our questions. Go ahead, Ms. Davidson, whenever you're ready. Thank you.
Hello, Council. It's my pleasure to be here to delegate to you today. My name is Tova Davidson. I am the Executive Director at Sustainable Waterloo Region. Thank you for letting me delegate virtually. My team is down volunteering at Food for Kids today, and I didn't want to miss that important piece of our community give back. I'm delegating today with a lot of joy and a lot of hope in this proposal that staff is bringing. As many of you know, the work of Sustainable Waterloo Region is to drive sustainability here in the community, to set and meet our greenhouse gas targets, and that's both in terms of corporate emissions in partnership with your incredible team there at the City of Kitchener through our Impact Network program, and also as a community through the Climate Action Waterloo Region Collaborative, of which you are a very important part, and the Transform WR strategy that came from it. When I saw in the paper last week this proposal was coming to committee and then to council, and the line about it being net zero, I was really excited about what this means and it being a demonstration of the kind of commitment to sustainability that our community needs to have to meet some of our targets. The net zero standards of the Canadian Green Building Council was first achieved by the Evolve One building, which was an SWR Imagine project and partnership where we did a lot of integrated design, and so it's really inspiring to see this community stepping forward to do even more. I applaud staff and a big kudos to them for seeing the value of going net zero in a community facility like this, seeing that it's not only a sustainability value, but it's also a big financial benefit, and we're seeing that play out in the Evolve One building as well over its now nearly 6-year history. I also want to just share that this would be well in line with some of the work that we're doing in partnership with Explore Waterloo Region to drive sustainability, to create stronger tourism events, sporting events included in this community. So I am really here to say kudos, to throw the support of our organization behind this, to share how well it aligns with some of the other commitments done through climate action as well as corporate emissions, and just to take the opportunity to give those moments of support. Too often people don't tell councils when they're doing great things, or staff either. So I just wanted to make sure that you heard this is incredible. It makes me super proud to be part of this movement, and I thank you for your commitment to sustainability and a future that's better for all residents.
Thank you so much, Ms. Davidson, for your presentation. Those are really, it's heartwarming to hear your comments. I'm wondering if council has any questions directly for Ms. Davidson. If you do, put your hand up, because I'll keep the line up there from earlier. Anyone? I don't see anyone. So thank you so much for presenting. It was wonderful to hear from you today. Thanks. Okay, council, we'll move to Mayor Verbanovic for questions of staff. Thank you. And I'll turn your microphone on.
That always helps a little. Thanks, Chair Johnson. And first of all, let me begin by thanking the entire staff team and also the consultant team that have been working on getting this project to us. It's, I think, the first time a project is at this phase, and we look at one of the first pages in the presentation, and it has all those logos from all of the consulting partners that have worked with us, and that's because of I guess the IPD process, and so it's very different than any other project that I can think of that we've been part of in the past. And so, Mr. May, I guess I would just ask the question: why IPD, and what have we learned through this process, and what it means from a cost and timeliness perspective?
Through you, Madam Chair, I'm new to the IPD stuff, so I'll provide you with my own personal learnings, and then if Mr. Bex, who has a lot more experience and wants to add the official benefits, I would suggest you might want to do that. What I can tell you is that we have seen incredible benefits in terms of the detailed design. So we get multiple private sector partners in a room with staff to talk through issues and come to solutions collaboratively. And remember that we are all working together as a team, a legally minded team. And so we're no longer just looking for some one person's benefit or some profit margin here. It is a collective group. And so that's true on the design components, which I believe are better today than they were in 2022. On the cost, there was a period of time not long ago when this facility was going to cost more than $144 million. But because the IPD came together in a very deliberate exercise of looking for innovations and changes that could be made that wouldn't impact the user experience, they were actually able to find about $7 million to bring the cost down by $7 million. And we wouldn't have done that had we followed the usual process. And then finally, we can be more certain about the schedule, because the people who are actually going to be doing the work have been spending a lot of time talking together to figure out the sequence of how this building will be constructed. And so for me personally, it has been a huge benefit. I haven't seen these types of benefits in other projects the city has done. Now, I don't know if Mr. Bex has more to add to that.
Thank you, through the chair. To reiterate those and maybe add a couple of comments, the primary benefit of IPD is risk mitigation. The collaboration and the innovation embedded in the IPD model drives that change that is not found in traditional building projects. So risk mitigation around schedule risk and budget risk, which are largely owner-bear in the end, are mitigated through this collaborative model. So being able to get to today's presentation is already a leap forward, and we would carry that forward through the rest of the project delivery.
Great, thank you. Just on the issue of funding, and you touched on the issue of DC-related funding, I just want to clarify, because my understanding is, while it will, beyond the listed 4 projects that are DC related, it won't prevent us from considering things like Rockway Seniors and so on, which isn't a DC related project during the balance of the term, correct?
Through you, Madam Chair, that's correct. The Rockway Center is a good example of a non-DC related project because it's not about growth, it's about a replacement of an existing facility. We'll just put the caution that in my experience here at the city, the vast majority of the indoor rec facilities that we build are through DCs and are growth related.
Okay, thank you. And then the last question is, there's been I gather a significant amount of community engagement in this project. I think council's received letters from soccer and from cricket. Those are 2 that come to mind, just in terms of their support for this project. And so I gather there's been a lot of community engagement in this thus far, and opportunity for more as the project goes along.
Through you, Madam Chair, that's correct, but perhaps Mr. Shane can provide some more details.
Thank you. Through the chair, yes, extensive community engagement has been conducted as part of both the 2019 Leisure Facility Master Plan and the 2022 business case, which has led to the proposal we have in front of us today. That engagement included community-wide consultations with residents through online surveys, as well as targeted focus groups with our sport users. Engagement will continue, especially as we move towards finalizing designs, and then we move towards working with our user groups to target programming and scheduling.
Great, thank you very much. Those are all the questions I have, Chair Johnson, and if, at the appropriate time, if you can come to me for the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Davey.
Thank you. I'd actually start my questioning with the Climate Change and Environment Committee met on Thursday of last week, and there's a presentation by staff on this, and I am happy to report that that committee actually endorsed this facility as designed. There was an addition that staff explore, and this is going to be leading to my question. There is an addition that staff also explore the potential to increase the solar roof to look at primarily economies of scale and payback. So I guess my question is there still potential for us to look at that either through city funding or potential grants?
So through Madam Chair to Councillor Davey, yes, the design of the facility is very much focused on being future ready, both for additional recreational needs in the gymnasium, but also to support additional solar as well. So the roof structure can support additional structure, solar structure, as well as the future gymnasium. And certainly we are looking at exploring grant opportunities associated with both the gymnasium facility and additional sustainability measures through solar. So we're absolutely making the facility future ready to allow for that.
Excellent. And back to, I'll make my comments after, but in terms of the things I typically look for on time and on budget, Mayor Rabinovich touched upon those, but with this new design system, can I ask, in comparison to past facilities that we built, how comfortable is staff that these items will come in? Well, I'll ask them at the same time, how comfortable they will come in on time and on budget? Is there a potential for it to even come in under budget?
Thank you. Through the chair. As mentioned earlier, IPD is really a completely different methodology. So comparison to more traditional delivery, where cost overruns and schedule overruns are typical, IPD projects typically run earlier in schedule and under budget. The advantage of the IPD project and the way that it's structured contractually is that as the owners, we have a buffer. So there are milestones in which we would deliver profit to the risk partners, the people that we're collaborating with on this project. And if they don't meet those, then we would replan or reschedule, and there would be an opportunity to adjust. Failure to meet that results in a clawback. So we have mitigation factors built into the arrangement, but those are just tools really the thrust of the IPD model is the collaborative, innovative nature of delivering a project that is not characteristic of traditional building models.
That's helpful. All comments as well, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davey. Councillor Singh.
Thank you. Perfect timing. I was going to ask something similar, but I'll expand on Councillor Davies' question. So I think the biggest benefit of IPD is the surety that the budget would not exceed what's shown to the public in this council. So we have some sense of security where in most projects there could be significant overruns.
Yes, through the chair. Confirm just in terms of numbers, there is about $11 million of profit built into this budget. And the way the project would get executed is if by chance the project were to exceed the 143, we would eat into the profit before there would be an additional owner cost. So that gives us an additional buffer in the planning and in the contingencies that are already built in to ensure that we have an on-budget project.
And that also enables us to be very transparent on the profits that are built into a project. A lot of times people tend to sadly speculate or kind of, I would say in some cases, fearmonger or essentially put a shadow of impropriety of, hey, a project this size, how much is someone making? This process articulates exactly what that profit is.
Yes, through the chair, correct. This entire process is transparent and all partners on the project see all of the details associated with both the planning and the financial execution.
And can we showcase that at later stages of the evolution of the construction so that we can be transparent with our citizens also?
Through the chair, absolutely. There is nothing confidential about the project and would at some point encourage council to join us in the big room to see how the IPD process actually plays out.
I really look forward to that. I think this needs to be more of the process going forward, just enabling us to stopgap as well as show that accountability to our citizens. So that being said, I think one of the questions was asked is about if it costs less, which is fantastic, but I think any savings are shared with our risk partners too. Is that not right?
Through the chair, yes, savings are shared. We will have to move after council's final decision, contractual arrangements with the partners, and those specific details would be sorted out, but certainly the team is incentivized to realize innovations, and then those innovations are shared both between the owner, the city in this case, and the risk partners.
Yeah, no, that's helpful. I think more so the reason why I wanted to bring light to that is the fact that everyone is moving in the same direction, that it's in their best interest to save money also.
Through the chair, correct.
Good. Now, with the question that Councillor Davey asked about future-proofing on solar panels on the roof, very quickly, would that enable us to do something similar as the COF or exceed that footprint of what's on the COF?
Go ahead. You want to go?
Through the chair, so the current system in our design is 560 kilowatts. The system on the COF is 500 kilowatts. So currently we are larger than the COF system.
That's just on the soccer field, or that would be on the gymnasium as well?
This is just on one half of the soccer field's roof. Yes.
So we have potential of increasing it?
Correct.
So you saying that it's one half, would it be future ready that it could potentially double because it's only on one half?
Through the chair, yes, we have structural capacity for solar on all of the roofs.
So 1 megawatt, potentially?
I believe it's more than that, but I don't have the exact number.
Okay, well, that's a significant increase. That's great. In the shortness of the time I have left, there's going to be a lot of activity, a lot of movement in a facility like this. My daughter's currently there. They're taking figure skating, and they frequent Rim Park quite a bit. Every weekend when we're there, you're literally bumping shoulders because of how many people are there. There's a commercial avenue of having so many people congregating in one area. Are we building in some potential of leasing out space and partnering up with a commercial venture where, again, we can incur a revenue as well as it's an opportunity to support businesses also?
Mr. May?
Through you, Madam Chair, I'm going to assume that what you mean is a food service or restaurant, because that's really all I've seen in rec facilities.
Yeah, that's really what it is. Yeah.
Okay, then I do have an answer for you. Through you, Madam Chair, we look very closely at this issue, actually, and based on the financial numbers provided and some expertise on this issue, there isn't a business case to bring a private sector partner in where they wouldn't lose money. So we have set up what I believe to be a better form of concession and food service than we have at any of our other rec facilities, to go partially that way, but it wouldn't go all that way.
Okay, and we could potentially re-explore while we can engage with private businesses as we look at expansion from the gymnasium side. So this is not the end.
My staff team might not be happy, but we will absolutely explore this as we look at the gym expansion.
Okay, no, that's helpful to have that perspective. That's open enough. Could I just ask one quick question, one last one? It's going to be, literally, Mr. May is going to nod his head in agreement.
Only because you're so nice. Go ahead.
Thank you. I think it was really helpful to have that red bolded lettering saying that this is not tax supported. When saying DC funded, I think we have to be clear. Media tends to sometimes miss this, so we got to repeat this constantly. When we say DC funded, we're saying it's supported through development that's happening and has happened in the city of Kitchener, and not through the tax dollars that are paid through property taxes.
Through you, Madam Chair, that's absolutely correct. This is the growth of our community paying for a facility required because of that growth.
Good, thank you. And saying it in such a succinct way is necessary for us to repeat it as well.
Thank you, Councillor Singh. Councillor Michaud.
Thank you, and right on the heels of Councillor Singh's comment about the growth of the committee, Southwest Kitchener has grown exponentially, and this is a super exciting development to be out there. And since it's been on social media, I've had a lot of great comments, excitement building. One of the questions I'm going to ask you is, and I've asked it before, and I know you'll give me the answer and we'll share it with everyone, is there's been some questions of why there's no ice rinks in here on this project.
Through you, Madam Chair. Yeah, it's a great question, and it's not a surprising one. I would just remind Council that back in 2019, when you set the top 5 indoor rec priorities, a new arena was not in the top 5. The first 2 were the indoor pool and the indoor turf, and as a matter of fact, the 3rd, 4th, and 5th priorities are the 3 community centers that we're still continuing. So we now have a plan to fund all 5 of the rec priorities that you established. The arena was not one of them at that time. In 2022, we brought a business case forward that actually did look at the concept of building an arena as a part of this facility, but Council chose not to proceed with that and instead proceed with an indoor turf and an indoor pool for a couple of reasons. First of all, there was no existing money for an arena within the 10-year capital forecast. But more importantly, there's work to be done to determine the growth needs of our ice pads for the future. And so the last point I'll make on this is that's exactly why Council will recall you added $200,000 in this year's budget to begin an arena strategy. And that strategy is not only going to look at how much ice demand we have, but it's going to look at how efficient are our current facilities operating. They are very large emitters of greenhouse gases, and so how can we improve upon that and set short, medium, and long-term goals for all of our existing facilities that I think could provide us with opportunities to improve existing facilities while we look at whether or not we need more.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. May, for explaining that. I think that will help answer all the questions that I've had from constituents. And again, I want to congratulate everyone on this team. It's just fantastic. I'm excited to be out in Southwest Kitchener, as are all the residents, and I'm sure the rest of the city. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Councillor Michaud. Councillor Stretch.
Yes, I have a few questions. So did you say this will be the most sustainable building in the country?
Through you, Madam Chair, it will be one of the most environmentally sustainable. We're aware of a small handful of other facilities, but the certification level that we are building to in terms of the green building standards, to achieve that for a rec facility is incredibly rare across all of Canada.
Mm-hmm. And then my other questions are about the IPD project management style. So is this the first project the city has used this management style in?
Through the chair, this is the first time the City of Kitchener is engaged in an IPD project. This is the second IPD project that I've engaged in. I had the benefit of participating in one at the University of Waterloo. It was a $50 million IPD project. It was actually the second IPD project in Canada.
And do we have a process or a way of capturing our learning?
Through the chair, absolutely. This has been a steep learning curve for the entire team, including many of our collaborators on the project. So capturing this, and one of our facility management objectives coming out of this project is to retain that knowledge and to apply it to future projects of various scales and sizes.
Great. And is this something that the private sector uses? Or I guess, are any of our private sector partners, have they used this model before? Do you know?
Through the chair, some of our partners on the project are familiar and have engaged in various forms of the IPD methodology. We've also engaged a third-party consultant to support the team from Colliers. That individual has extensive IPD experience from across Canada and the United States. So we have a mix of new and seasoned IPD pros.
So great. I look forward to the learning that not only we learn as a city from this, but from what our partners can also learn from this, and how we build faster and better. Admittedly, I have stayed up since learning about this project with excitement. I think this is really exciting. I really love the direction. I love the sports that are highlighted: soccer, we have cricket, using sport court, all the different low-cost activities that can happen out of a place like this is amazing. And the focus and the priority being sustainability, as well as an active lifestyle, supporting mental health, and all of these overlapping things. I can't be more enthusiastic about this, and I really think this could be a model for the city in our standard of builds going forward. So we're watching closely. I would love to see this come in under budget. What a success story that would be icing on the cake, really. And just to talk about the sustainability piece, I just want to say that although it is an investment, it's not just an investment monetarily, but an investment in the future, as well as insurance for the future. So I'm really looking forward to supporting this.
Thank you, Councillor Stretch. Councillor Schneider.
I just have comments, so I can wait if that's necessary.
Thank you, Councillor Schneider. Councillor Davey. And yours is a comment too? Okay. I will ask my questions then. Thank you. What? You have a question? I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Councillor Ovadani. I'm so sorry. Please go ahead.
It's okay. I'll just jump in anytime as needed. I just have comments. I'll wait till comments.
He has comments too.
Oh, you just have comments as well? Okay. All right. Then I will go ahead and ask my questions. Thank you. So one of the concerns that I have heard from people in the past about our pools is that it's difficult to view your kids in the pool, and many people want to do that when their kids are taking their lessons. So I know that you had mentioned about there being a viewing area. Perhaps you can expand on the design here and what that will mean for people viewing lessons. And I'll just turn your microphone on. Here we go.
Thank you very much. Through the chair, viewing has been a large focus with the design team, providing a variety of different spaces that parents can view their children. Parents have a choice of being, I guess it's called a parent pen on deck, as well as there is open second floor, open air viewing gallery, and then there's a couple different areas that are more climate controlled spaces behind the glass, one on the second floor and then also through the lobby area. It's a very effective use of glass as well.
Yeah, that's great. I also think it's good, frankly, to not have the parents on the pool deck. That's a lot easier for the instructors and the lifeguards, frankly. So I think that's a good plan moving forward. So thank you for that. Also, and I'm not sure who's going to answer this particular question, but certainly there's been, you know, in tough economic times, people ask questions about spending money on a large recreation complex as opposed to building housing right now. So I'm wondering if somebody would like to answer that one. Mr. May, there you go.
Through you, Madam Chair, it's a good question. What I would tell you is that the funding for this facility comes from two sources. The first being previously announced federal and provincial grants that were given to us specifically for this facility. So we have no ability to try to use that money for anything else. I suspect if we did, the federal and provincial governments would quickly come and take it back. But the second source is those DC development charge revenues, which we collected specifically to use for indoor recreation facilities. And so there is no legal mechanism to now move that money to a different priority. So these funds are being used as they were intended and can't be changed.
Thank you. I think that's going to be really important to include in all of our communication because I do think that that's something that's going to come up many times. So if you could make sure that we're also talking about that, because it is really important. I have another question around economic development. This is really exciting in terms of economic development, and I'm wondering if we can comment on further on what we're expecting to come in terms of being able to attract tournaments and things here, but also the ability to attract talent and keep them here in our community, whether those are athletes or whether those are people looking to move here for a tech job and stay because there's really good recreation facilities here. I'll let whomever is going to answer that. There you go. Thank you.
Through the chair, we do know that this is an extremely attractive facility. So when we look at both not only regional events but provincial level events, it will attract quite a bit of attention, and we know the Kitchener Soccer Club is already looking to host several events in the coming years. We're not yet sure of the analysis on how that will impact the economic impacts on the city due to those tournaments, but we know it will have some. Staff will take some time to do the analysis on those and as those events are presented forward.
Yeah, thanks. I think honestly, to go along with that, we have to. It's not easy to define, but I truly believe that the more facilities like this, the better we're able to attract talent to this region and to want to stay here because there's going to be really good facilities for them to use. Okay, thank you. Councillor Davey, do you have a question or comments? Anybody else with questions that happens to be in the queue right now? I don't think so. Okay, Councillor Davey, go ahead.
Wow, great. Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Johnson. So it's,
sorry, I didn't see you didn't have your hand up on there.
No, but yeah.
Okay,
no, I just
thank
earlier
you.
said, yeah, we have to. It's indeed my pleasure to move the recommendation that's before us, and I'll wait till the end to make my comments.
I'm actually going to go to Councillor O'Donoghue first. Sorry about that. Go ahead, Councillor O'Donoghue. This is in your ward.
Thank you very much, Chair. I do appreciate it. I do want to say a big thank you to staff for the great work that's been put into this. I had a chance to go over this a few times with them and really loved the qualities and all the different amenities that will be a part of this. I know 2 years ago, there were many requests for something like this. I didn't see something this big, but it's great to see all the amenities that are going to be going in here. So I'm really excited. I'm really looking forward to this. And I'm going to be challenging some councillors to some soccer games at the pitch. So looking forward to this.
Thank you, Councillor Ovadani. I'm not sure who's going to take you up on that, but that sounds like fun. Councillor Davey.
Yes, thank you. Very excited about this as well. Actually, I'd start by, I think it's important to acknowledge former Ward 5 Councillor Galloway Seelock, who worked on this, advocating for her residents for many, many years, and I'm sure she's very, very happy with that this development's proceeding. It's important to acknowledge her. Just a couple things. I just quickly wanted to acknowledge again some of the feedback we've had too, and I'm glad staff acknowledged the using the money to build housing piece. And you know, it's a good question to ask, and I'm glad residents are asking that because we do have a housing crisis. But to be completely honest, that is not directly our jurisdiction to deal with. Our jurisdiction to deal with is to build complete communities with recreation facilities just like this. It is squarely the role of the regional government and the province really to actually build those affordable homes and push that agenda. But having said that, anyone that's paying attention knows that we're straying well outside of our jurisdiction to address that as well. I represent the most northeast ward in the city, and this facility is being built in the southwest. Very, very far away, but I'm still super excited about this because for years and years and years, the people in the Southwest have been waiting and waiting. They've had no pools anywhere near them. This facility addresses our community becoming more diverse. And frankly, it will, even though it may not be near the residents I represent, for example, it will certainly free up the facilities we have, like Lyle Hallman Pool and all the other pools in the city. That will make that'll make things better for everyone. So I have to comment on the fact that not only is this facility, massive and amazing, but the fact that staff are coming in net zero without having council, push and prod and come in hugely over budget is I'm very, very proud of. The fact that the climate committee, those people are very, very serious about climate change. The fact that they endorse this, I think, is a bit of a feather in our cap. And lastly, I have learned an awful lot about IPD as well in the last, year and a half, and I could not be more excited about the prospect for a facility this size to come in not only on time, which is a huge issue, but on budget. And I think my reputation is pretty clear of being concerned about things going over budget, and I have every confidence that we will. So huge thank you to staff and the project team, and I can't wait to see this open.
Thank you, Councillor Davey. I want to remind Council that we have a hard stop today at 4 o'clock. There's people in line to make comments, so please keep your comments short and succinct. And I go to Councillor Singh.
Madam Chair, the fact that you said that just before I'm speaking, I'm feeling like I'm being targeted, but I'll take the time that I need. Because I think this is one item, we tend to talk a lot, but this is one thing that's going to really define our community. We are asked to build housing because that is absolutely our mandate as a municipality. It's our responsibility to have the right planning policies in place that development can proceed forward, construction of housing can take place. Far too often we're dealt with challenges because our communities are changing. There's new density, different type of housing that's being built in areas that never experienced that. And far too often those residents are irate in saying, well, what's in it for me? Aside the fact that it's enabling and creating housing for new residents, making more housing choices for existing residents. But again, the immediate question is, what's in it for me? This is what's in it for them. It's our responsibility to build housing, but also it's our responsibility to build community. And these development charges, which is again money that's intaked through any application that comes forward when construction of a unit takes place, significant cost is towards development charges, and that's accumulation of what this fund will enable us to build or even take debt that will ultimately get paid through development charges as well. So development itself is creating community. It's enabling for us to benefit the entirety of our citizens, not just the new residents, not just the diverse faces. It's all inclusive of everyone that's in the city of Kitchener, and I can't applaud that enough. Honestly, seeing a number this large, it's a sticker shock. It's worrisome seeing that the city is spending this much, but that's why I think we have to be loud and clear and, go to the 10th floor, Mr. May, and shout it out loud. This is not going to cost you taxpayers. This is coming from the development community. This is coming through new housing. And if we're able to build a facility this large, it's going to define our community. The fact that it's going to be net zero, as Councillor Davey has said, goes to show you that you can build the business case for a facility this large and still be responsible towards our environment. And at the same time, build it in a way that it's going to sustain and last longer, and it's going to cost the taxpayer less. Because in the end, operating costs would be borne by the taxpayers. And so ensuring that overall operations is reduced, we're being responsible. The fact that we're going to build in the ability to create energy that, just like the COF, that gives back to the taxpayer each year, the future solar roof, hopefully it will be as large, as much as possible for capacity, will reduce the operating cost of that facility and maybe even return money back to the coffers. And that's responsible planning. So to staff, I appreciate the effort that this has taken. Mr. May, I'm sure this has probably taken the entirety of the last few years of planning towards this as your mandate. Thank you for what your leadership and the overall staff that have come to do this. And the fact that we looked outside the box. IPD, we are ensuring that we will come in line with the budget or less, with reduced risk. And I think enough can't be said around that. And Councillor Stretch, you asked a really important question, that this is an opportunity for learning. So let's capture all that learning so that we can continue to replicate this level of success. I can't wait to be at the opening in 2026.
Thank you, Councillor Singh. Councillor Schneider.
Thank you, Chair Johnson. I just want to thank staff and all involved for the vision on this. I think this hits on a lot of things that are important to us as a city and us as a council, with equity, diversity, and inclusion, the environment, sustainability, the social aspect, the health aspect, the cost, the value, the collaboration with the integrated project design, with the savings and improvements in the design that come along the way. So I just want to say thanks and look forward to supporting this.
Thank you, Councillor Schneider. Councillor Deneau.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And to echo everybody else around the horseshoe here, thank you very much for the staff working on this, Mr. May. Great conversation we had last week, I think it was Thursday. And, I just want to say, as a city, we're really moving the needle. Not just this, which, promotes diversity, inclusiveness, environmental benefits, but the things that we've done, that we've endorsed around this horseshoe in the last year, inclusionary zoning, housing rezoning, Carabana coming this summer, Gaukel Street, the things that we're doing in this community are here to service our folks today, but beyond. And so kudos to our staff, kudos to council for bringing these terrific ideas forward. And I look forward to watching my girls play soccer in a couple years at this park, and obviously many more families to enjoy this this park. And I can't wait till we break ground on the gymnasium, because that's going to be awesome too. So again, thank you for all your hard work. More people need to know about what the good stuff we're doing around the city. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Deneau. Mayor Vervanevik.
Well, thank you very much, Chair Johnson. And I do want to begin again by giving staff a huge shout out for the work that's been done in getting this incredibly exciting and historical project before council this week. And both the work that's been done in terms of collaborations, the work that's been done from a financial perspective, and the work that's been done by bringing this new approach to construction management forward, something that I think has been noted will, I believe, not only serve us for this project, but similar types of projects in the future. And I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge, as I think I have in the past, that I first learned about this a number of years ago when St. Jerome's University used IPD for the expansion of their university up at on the University of Waterloo as one of the affiliated colleges. And Mr. Becks, I believe, was involved with that project, and lo and behold, here we have him here helping us out in that same space going forward. I do want to also acknowledge, as Councillor Davey did, Councillor Kelly Galloway Seelock for the work that she had done previously in terms of advocating for this. And I know that Councillor O'Dooney has certainly been a strong advocate since he became the ward councillor. But this, I think it's important to remember that while this will obviously serve folks in the growing part of the city, it will be a citywide facility that will meet the needs of, as has been pointed out, estimated 380,000 visits in its first year alone. One of the other things that excites me about this project is that the lands immediately to the south, I guess, of the property are owned by the public school board, and if and when in the future they decide to proceed with a high school there and get permission to proceed with that, I think it will also create some opportunities to explore synergies between the city and them in terms of their site and our site going forward, which is an added bonus in my mind. The last thing that I really just want to touch on is the environmental components, and I was glad that Tova was able to join us in that regard, because the notion that this will be meeting the highest possible standard in terms of the Canada Green Building Council for zero carbon building standards is exactly the kind of thing and exactly the kind of leadership that I think is expected of cities like ours. It speaks to the kinds of commitments we made in terms of climate change, in terms of the work that we're doing both as a city and in our partnerships within the broader region around meeting our climate targets. And certainly from that perspective, it's very exciting. Lastly, just from a partnership point of view, I know that we've heard from a couple groups so far, and I wouldn't be surprised if we hear from others yet. But this really is going to do wonders in terms of equity and creating and responding to growing sporting needs in our community by groups that have, historically been underserved, and also ensuring that sports are more affordable for people of all ages and all cultures and all socioeconomic stratas in the community. So once again, thank you to all the staff that have been involved. I know Michael and Denise, from a general manager point of view, have shown significant leadership here, as is the whole team. And I do also want to just acknowledge, as Mr. May did, the role of the project manager, Osama Siddiqui, who unfortunately couldn't be here today. And I'll ask for a recorded vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was going to do the same thing. So, it's been moved, and we'll wait for that to come up. There we go. And Councillor Owadani?
Yes.
Is voting yes as well. Thank you. That's lovely to see. Thank you, everyone. And I know we have one last item to deal with, but we'll need to stop our meeting and continue it after that. After? No, you want to move forward?
The last item is simply an information item. So if there are no questions on it, the meeting is adjourned.
Okay, great. Then I need someone to move adjournment. Thank you, Councillor Michaud. All those in favor? Thank you. Good job, everyone.